Hey everybody, I'm Matt with Halloween Daily News, back again with another brand new exclusive interview. I just recently had a killer conversation with Damien Leone. He is of course the writer, director, special effects makeup artist, and creator of the Halloween horror film Terrifier and its highly anticipated upcoming sequel, Terrifier 2. We discussed Damien's own origin story, growing up a horror fan, discovering and being inspired by the work of the great Tom Savini. We also talked about the genesis of horror's newest icon, Art the Clown, and Damien's entire filmography, including the All Hallows Eve anthology, Frankenstein vs. the Mummy, and of course, the Terrifier films. Very excited to share this with you guys. Here is part one of my interview with Damien Leone. Damien, thank you for being here and talking to us today. I feel like this has been a long time coming because I've been a fan of yours for many years now, since I first saw All Hallows Eve, which I guess was late 2013 or early 2014 when I first time I saw it. And so I wanted to talk to you ever since then. And then we met briefly at Mad Monster Party in 2019, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is exciting for me, so thank you for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's good to see you again.
Awesome. And I guess I want to get your whole origin story before we get to the genesis of Art the Clown and talk about Terrifier and all that. I want to get your origin story. So let's go back to the beginning if we can. And I actually remember at Mad Monster Party, you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, your mom named you after Damien from The Omen.
Yeah, it's a true story. Yeah, so it all started there. I was raised on a steady diet of horror movies since I'm a little kid. I'm sure the name had something to do with it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, and she would just let me watch horror movies at a very young age. Really didn't matter about them being rated R, which was cool. I think the first horror film she let me watch, if I remember, rent from the video store, was Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, wow.
And for some reason, that VHS cover art, it was like a painting of him in the middle with the chainsaw and then like Sally's big eyes behind him. It was just speaking to me. And I guess it was that segue of it being sort of a cartoon. The imagery, and I was just like, I have to see what this is, and I begged her to let me rent it, and she did. And I just fell in love with horror movies, and then I discovered Tom Savini, special makeup effects icon, through his VHS tape Scream Greats, which was a showcase of his effects, and it was the first time I saw a makeup artist creating monsters, and that really just like blew my mind and got me interested in the art of makeup effects and creature creating, and then that all sort of evolved into filmmaking from there. But I really owe it to Savini for kind of pulling the curtain back and showing me how movies were made.
So about how old were you when you first saw the first Chainsaw at that time?
Had to be about 5, something like that, 5, 6. Specifically that was renting movies. But prior to that, I feel like I'd already been watching. Jaws has been there since I'm like 3, 4 years old. And we had the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th Part 3, and Halloween, all taped off of television. I had those on VHS tapes at home, but so I'd already been watching those. Horror films were always there. I remember I was probably around 4 or 5 again, and being obsessed with Jason already, and begging my aunt to find me a hockey mask like Jason wore. And not easy to find at a sporting goods store. Like, they didn't sell that specific mask. And I remember her bringing me home a goalie mask, like as close as she could find, and being very disappointed because it was not a Jason mask, but it was still better than nothing. But I remember that like it was yesterday. So crazy.
That's great. And it sounds like your mom was probably a horror fan too then, obviously.
Just a huge movie fan, but love horror movies. Yeah. Even like action movies. So I grew up watching Rambo, Commando, and Beastmaster, and Red Sonja. Those were staples as well since I'm very young. It's just like great taste in older movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I always ask everybody, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer with you. I'm betting that you were probably pretty big into Halloween as a kid growing up in this in this house.
Oh, big time, big time. It's still my favorite favorite holiday. I love it. I feel like I don't get to I'm always making people up as opposed to like really celebrating it myself. I feel like I need to, experience it more. Because for the past few years, everybody comes up to me and they're like, "Oh, can you make me something? Make me this, make me that," and I do it. But I miss it. I miss dressing up and going out. And, it's good times.
Do you have memories of that as a kid around that time when you were first getting it? Like, were you do you have memories of like some of those early costumes, like some favorite costumes that maybe stand out from when you were a kid?
Yeah, I think I went as every killer at some point. I specifically remember going as Michael Myers and it being very rainy on that Halloween, just walking around in the rain. I just like being in character. I would do that in school. I remember doing that in preschool, literally in preschool. You would just play pretend with your friends in recess and whatnot, and they were all Ghostbusters. Okay. They were pretending they were Ghostbusters, and I was pretending I was Jason, and some of the kids actually knew who Jason was. And I remember they were shooting me, and I was like obsessed with Jason in part 6 at that point when he would get shot, like play dead for a few seconds and then like hop up. And I remember doing that to a kid, and the kid just kept trying to shoot me and keep me down, but I wouldn't. And he literally freaked out and ran away screaming and ran to like one of the mothers. And I actually got in trouble for scaring him. That was really cool.
So that was like an early experience of the thrill of scaring the crap out of people.
Yes, 100%, man. That's so strange. I haven't talked about that or thought about that in such a long time, man. That just like popped into my head. Yeah. So I was always obsessed with scaring people, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Naturally. Do you and then my wife always asks, we always try to ask everybody, what was your favorite Halloween candy? Then or now or both?
Wait, Halloween what?
Halloween candy.
Oh, Jesus. I love chocolate. I love candy. I got a sweet tooth. Probably, I don't know, man. Jesus. I love Snickers, Kit Kats, Reese's, Baby Roots. They're all up there. It's like Sophie's Choice. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know. Maybe a Reese's peanut butter cup right now.
Yeah. It's hard to go wrong with a Reese's. I mean, it's classic for a reason.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you got early exposure to horror and obviously a horror friendly atmosphere growing up and started exercising scaring people at a young age. So you said it was watching the Tom Savini VHS that really kind of opened your eyes to makeup work. Were you thinking at that time, this is what I want to do? I want to make monsters in movies, or was it just I want to make monsters like this guy does just in general for fun at that time?
Yeah, well, I was always creative and I would draw a lot. And I thought I was going to be a cartoonist or a comic book illustrator, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Until I saw that tape. But when I first saw Scream Greats, I was very young. So I was too young to actually start getting into it and experimenting with those supplies and whatnot. So it was like around 7, like I discovered it, 7, 8. But then by the time I was 12, and my mother was going to take me to a horror convention to actually meet Savini. And that's when I really started taking it seriously. And somebody there was selling a starter makeup kit at one of the booths. And they were actually selling the real machetes that were dulled. Wow. Yeah, dulled and had the semicircle cut out, which is the classic Tom Savini gag, like it's in your throat or in your head or whatnot. So I bought all that stuff, and then I went home and just started experimenting and cracked open the kit, was just putting latex on my friends, wax, and then sending them home to their parents and freaking their parents out. And when I saw that, when I was able to trick an adult at that age, that really gave me like the bug. And I was like, oh, all right, I got to pursue this. And then I just started filming the effects, because a lot of them, his effects are film illusions, they don't really work unless you do it through an edit or something like that. So then, you know, we got my friend's father's camcorder and started filming the effects, and then I fell in love with filmmaking as a whole process. Yeah.
Awesome. So was that around, were you still in school at that point when oh yeah,
this was like 1994, probably like 95. So I was it's like around 12, I think. Yeah. So what is that? I'm 8th grade, something like that, maybe.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So it was around then, and you were filming because that was the way to pull off the effects, like you said. A lot of Savini stuff, you had to do it with the edit, and so you started getting the filmmaking bug then. How far along from there was the did you start formulating this character of Art the Clown, and that you wanted to put him on film? Because that started with some shorts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So how did that come to be?
Yeah. So when I got out of high school, I was like, all right, you know, naturally I'm going to try and go to film school. So I took one film class at the New School in Manhattan. And it was an aesthetics of directing class, just an introduction into directing. And I realized like it really wasn't for me, because I didn't like what they were teaching. You know, I was probably too young and immature, honestly, at the time to appreciate what they were showing me. But I really wasn't into like these foreign films and whatnot. It was nothing, you know, that wasn't why I wanted to be a filmmaker. So I stopped going, and I was like, you know what? I just got to make a short film. Like that's, you know, you got to have that calling card. So, you know, I tried to play to my strengths, and I was like, you know, I'll pack it out with special effects. I'll pack it out with monsters and try and make this short little sweet calling card, basically. And I just had this idea floating around in my head for a while of this silent clown harassing a woman on a city bus in the middle of the night. Like she's the only one on the bus. It just comes to a stop in like this really desolate, creepy neighborhood. And all of a sudden a clown gets on, and it's not even Halloween or anything. And he just sits across from her, and it kind of plays out just the way it is you see now in All Hallows Eve. And he's just staring at her, and then he starts toying with her, and it's sort of playful. And then it just gets more and more gradually intense and threatening until he's trying to stab her with a needle. And it's like, wow, you know, just the escalation of that horror. So I was like, yeah, I'll start it with this clown. He'll abduct this girl, and then she'll wake up in the hands of this cult with demons and whatnot. And then that was it. I mean, Art the Clown is just this sort of supporting character that brings the protagonist from A to B, and then he's gone. And then when I showed people that movie, they were like, yeah, it's really cool, man. Good job. You know, creatures look great, but that clown is crazy. You really have something there. I'd like to see more with that clown. And I got that note like across the board. So I'm like, all right, let's showcase him some more. So then I made the Terrifier short film, which I think was a 20-minute short film. That's the last segment in All Hallows Eve. And that was just a showcase for Art the Clown. It's like, all right, now let's give him, you know, the spotlight and turn him into more of a slasher now, because I'd never really seen a slasher. At that time, there weren't many slasher clowns. I mean, you had Pennywise. He's, you know, he's the pinnacle of the killer clown, still is, but you know, he's not quite a slasher. And I went tried to be as different as possible from Pennywise, because I knew, especially the Tim Curry Pennywise at the time, I didn't want to step on his toes. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. So from the color scheme to him having hair, Art being bald, one using weapons, one not, one speaking, one not, just across the board, I was like, I can't be anything like him. And I always gravitated more toward the silent killers, even though I absolutely love Freddy. There's something to me that's a little more unnerving about a silent killer that you can't stop and have a conversation with. You can't rationalize with them. They're more animal, more primitive, you know? So I always liked that. I thought that was creepier. So that's the main reason why he's silent. Plus, I don't have to worry about writing dialogue for him.
That's a good point. That's true. So that was kind of the genesis. And then at what point did All Hallows Eve come into play, and you compiled these two shorts that you had at the time, and then you compiled that and made the anthology that we know is All Hallows Eve. How did that come to be, and around what time was that?
Okay, I think that was around 2013. So I think both of those short films, I made them, put them into a couple of festivals, and then I just threw them on YouTube. And I was like, let's see what happens. And Terrifier was getting a lot of hits, especially for that time, because YouTube wasn't what it is now. And for a 20-minute obscure short horror film, it had like 150,000 views at that time, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
And the producer, Jesse Badget of All Hallows Eve, he was looking around YouTube to find Halloween-based short films from amateur filmmakers, and he was just going to compile them and make an anthology. And he loved Terrifier, and he loved Art the Clown, and he's like, I want to make this movie. I want to put Art the Clown on the cover, like he'll be the focal point of this film. He's like, and I'm going to go and try and find films from other filmmakers. And I was like, well, is it possible to just let me, be the sole filmmaker? I was like, I actually have this other short film with Art the Clown in it, which was The Ninth Circle. I was like, and then maybe we can get a couple extra bucks and we can pad it out and make another story and do a wraparound. Because I wanted it to be, I didn't want to share the movie with anybody, especially if it was going to be Art the Clown being the focal point of it. So, and he agreed, which was cool. And so we went and made All Hallows Eve. It was it's not what I wanted to do with Art the Clown. I never intended for him to be in an anthology and that whole VHS tape angle. I never liked. He was doing that because the producer was doing that because the movies VHS were popular at the time, and that's kind of what he was kind of piggybacking off of.
I got
so
you.
Yeah, but it was like I got my name out there a little bit, and it was the first time I got a movie on DVD. And it was just all stepping stones that led to where it is now. So I don't regret it.
Yeah, and it was everywhere too. I mean, I want to say I bought my DVD at Walmart. I mean, it was everywhere, and Art the Clown right there in the Walmart aisle, unbelievably.
Right. Exactly. So it's surreal. Yeah. So it's cool.
So you said that wasn't really your intention of where you saw Art after the Terrifier short film. Did you have an idea to put him in a feature after that, or did that thinking come later? Or did you always point?
Always.
Okay.
So when I made the Terrifier short, that was going to be I wanted to show that to people and be like, look, this is what we did for X amount of dollars in 20 minutes. I want to turn this into a feature. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen even after All Hallows Eve came out. Because I remember specifically reaching out to the producer and saying, well, what do you think? Do you think we can make an Art the Clown sole feature now? And he said at that time, he was like, look, clowns, they're not interested in clowns. Clowns can't sell a movie. Clowns can't sell a movie.
Wow.
But I don't blame him for that. I mean, that's just that's the mindset, because nobody wants to start the trend. They just want to follow.
Right.
At that point, you didn't have It. It didn't come out yet, the new It. But I remember telling him, because there were already rumors that It was coming out, and that it was at the same time when it was announced that Rob Zombie was making 31. And I said, I'm telling you, man, clowns, like, everything is cyclical. I'm like, clowns are gonna be the next big thing. I really think we should do this. And he just declined, and I went off on my own and tried to raise the money myself to make it. And I found my producer now, Phil, who's become like one of my best friends. And he's the only reason why Terrifier exists today. He's the only reason. He's the only one who believed in me and gave me money to make it. So
awesome.
Yep.
Very cool. And just before we get to that, they did do a sequel to All Hallows Eve, of course, not Art the Clown, and you weren't a director, but you were a producer on that, right?
Yeah, he gave me a producer credit. The only thing that I did for that movie was actually I made that pumpkin killer mask.
Oh, okay.
That was the only thing I did. But yeah, because I made sure when I made All Hallows Eve that I retained the rights to Art the Clown. So because I told him I didn't want to keep putting him in anthology movies. He knew I wanted to make a solo movie. So, but yeah, so he just, it was like a courtesy credit that he gave me, basically, to be attached to that. So
awesome. And I also want to talk briefly about Frankenstein versus the Mummy before we get to Terrifier. I just watched it this week for the first time. Actually, it's the only one of your films I hadn't seen yet, and I just watched it, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. How did that come to be? Two classic monsters, obviously.
Yeah. So that was the same producer of All Hallows Eve, and he was making these slew of found footage movies.
Okay.
And he came to me and said, "I'm going to be making a found footage Frankenstein versus the Mummy movie. Would you like to do the special effects on it?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "How the hell are you doing a found footage Frankenstein Mummy movie? That sounds crazy." I said, "Do you have a script or anything?" He's like, "No." He sort of had a treatment, and I said, "Is it possible for me to write my own version? Let's make it into a more traditional narrative, not a found footage, because I'm not a fan of found footage movies. And I'll do the special effects if we can keep it within the same budget that you have planned." And he said, "Yeah, if you could pull it off, do it." And he let me do it. Very, very ambitious. I think I had like $60,000 to make that movie.
Wow.
Something crazy like that. But yeah, I learned a lot of mistakes making that movie, especially as a screenwriter. I think I spent way too much time for a movie called Frankenstein versus the Mummy. I think you know what the people who are going to watch that movie are looking for. I think I took it too seriously because I was really obsessed with the novel, the Frankenstein novel by Mary Shelley. So I just wanted to make it as like serious, and I put like way too much drama and dialogue in it, and the fight scenes, so short, but whatever. I mean, it helped me with what I think Terrifier became. So it was a good part of the whole process to have gone through that.
Sure. And like I said, I mean, I liked it, and I'm a big fan of the novel as well. So I guess, I could kind of feel that you were definitely taking a lot of inspiration from that. I also thought it was cool seeing Robert McNaughton in there on screen. We met him actually at one of the very first horror cons we ever went to years ago, and he was I think it might have been his first convention too, but he was just amazing. He let me interview him, and he was just the coolest dude. And so dude. I was thrilled when I turned it on. I'm like, oh man, there's Robert. Awesome.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart, man. He's a friend of a friend, and he did it. He just did it as like a favor. He's so cool. Very cool.
Very cool. And the other thing I thought of when watching that, because of course I've seen your other films previously, but I did feel that it was kind of these classic monsters, this classic Frankenstein story that we all know, but it definitely felt like it was Frankenstein set in the Leone verse. I almost could have, I could almost see art existing in this world where this mummy and this Frankenstein live. So I appreciated that. I felt like you definitely, from All Hallows Eve to Frankenstein versus the Mummy, and then right up to Terrifier, it definitely feels similar, whether it's the cinematography or just the some of the imagery that just some of the grimy, just dripping atmosphere that is so present in the art films that I definitely appreciated that there it was in the Frankenstein film, and I thought it totally worked.
Oh, that's cool. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I guess I do at this point have a bit of a style and a tone. It's my sensibility, I guess. But yeah, I definitely tried to do that. I tried to bring my my style to it, especially with the grittiness, the graphic violence and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah, especially with the creatures. I mean, they're very violent and vulgar. Yeah, the Frankenstein monster, he's like he's a serial killer / rapist, in the body of monster. So I thought that was a cool angle, and the mummy's just brutal. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I had fun making it. There's things I like about the movie. There's things that I do cringe, but listen, I mean, it's like you're watching me grow as a filmmaker, like making making these like super low budget movies and just throwing them out there, and people get to see all the flaws, all the mistakes, you know, as I go. And that's, you know, that's what it is. I actually like learning from the failures. I embrace the failures. I read every critique, every criticism. I love getting notes. And you can tell what's genuine when somebody's trolling, or when somebody, you hear enough notes, you know, over and over and over, and you're like, all right, well, clearly there's something there I can work on. Yeah. So I think you could turn all that stuff into a positive for sure.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I mean, just the great effects in it. And you could see, as you said, you know, you can see the progression of your effects work through the films to when we get to Terrifier. You know, it's really kind of next level. And I think, you know, you can see that growth from All Hallows Eve to Frankenstein to Terrifier.
Well, so Terrifier, I feel like, for me personally, I feel like is my first official movie, because it's the first movie that I got to make exactly what I wanted to make, how I wanted to make it. You know, it's like All Hallows Eve was just this, you know, concoction. You know, there's my short films trying to piece it together with what the producer wanted to make, and then it's just this weird thing, you know, came out of that. And then Frankenstein, I didn't want to make a Frankenstein versus Mummy movie, but I was delivering flowers. I'm like, you know, at that time, that was my day job. I'm like, yeah, like I'll direct a movie. I'm like, let me write this and I'll do that, you know? But again, that wasn't something I had a passion for, that I really must make this. You know, Terrifier, I had a passion for. It's like I knew exactly what that movie was. You know, that came straight from me, which is important, you know? And that's the same thing that's happening, I hope, now with Terrifier 2. You know, I feel really, really good about it. It's very genuine. It's all coming straight from me. So hopefully it works.
I definitely feel like part of what fans like myself like and definitely recognize about you is some of what you just said, that you know, Terrifier is a singular voice and it's unfiltered, and you feel that when you watch it, that this is not a studio movie. This is not something that's gone through, you know, 30 different rewrites and 20 producers. And, you know, this is a filmmaker doing what he wants to do and pulling it off. And I think a lot of people, you know, it kind of goes back to that independent spirit of Romero and the original Night of the Living Dead, and you know, Carpenter and Halloween, and I think you know, Wes Craven. I mean, they all kind of had that independent spirit, especially in the beginning, where it was like, you know, there no need for a director's cut, because that was their cut at the time. I think if you would ask them. So you said the key to really getting Terrifier going was finding the right producer to back you up. Was the script already more or less ready at that point? You said you you knew you wanted to make it. How when did the script come about? Had you already written it before and had it in place for a few years, and was it after you got the financing and then?
Yeah, I think I wrote it all pretty quickly. Okay. Probably wrote it right after Frankenstein, which was, I think that was around 2014. I really lose track of the time at this point. But I wrote it. I mean, as you can see, there's really nothing to Terrifier. I mean, it's very simplistic, very basic. So it's just very simple script. I had it. And we just went, it was me and my producer / director of photography, George, who started helping me. I met him on All Hallows Eve. He filmed the wraparound segment. Maybe something else, because there was like 5 DPs on that movie. And then we got along so well. He's one of my best friends now. And then he's been my DP ever since. So he shot Frankenstein versus the Mummy. And then we were going to shoot Terrifier. So he was going to help me produce it as well and try and raise the money. And we were going to do a Indiegogo. So that's how it started, or Kickstarter, I think. So we started it, and we were shopping it around, you know, going through our email lists and just sending it to everybody. And Phil, the producer, is someone that I had worked with on his movie Joe's War, like a couple of years prior or whatnot, doing the special effects. And we hit it off and got along. And he was just always keeping in contact. And I sent it to him and I was like, hey, if you know anybody, you know, can you shop this around for me? Anybody might be interested. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, what are you looking to raise for this? And I said like $30,000. And he's like, I'll give you the money. You know, he's like, but I want to help you like physically. I don't want to just be like a producer behind the scenes. He's like, I want to be there. I want to help you build the special effects. He's like, I want to see how the special effects are made. He was interested in that. Mm-hmm. And listen, I tell people this all the time. Raising money is the most like heartbreaking, discouraging process on the face of the earth. You will 99.9% of the people you meet are so full of shit. Mm-hmm. And you're going to run into this all the time. They're all going to tell you, yes, I'll give you the money. I'll give you the money. And they're going to string you along for months. And then they're never going to give you the money. Okay. Yeah. When you know you're going to get the money, you're going to get it. You're going to talk to the guy. The guy's going to say, I'll give you the money. And the next day, if he doesn't give you the money, you're not getting the money. The next day, Phil gave me the money. Like it was just like that. And I say it all the time. Like he's a godsend. And that's how he is. Like he doesn't mess around. And that's it. We just jumped right into making it. That was it. I mean, the Kickstarter, I think it was Indiegogo, didn't do anything really at that time. We didn't hit our goal because it just wasn't. He wasn't that big at that point. It was still the underground following of All Hallows Eve that was still sort of stirring. You know, it was growing, but it wasn't what it was when we did the Terrifier 2. Yeah.
Right. That was a totally different story. We'll get to that in just a minute, but so you went into production on Terrifier, and you've got your backing, you've got your script, you've got your freedom to do it your way. Finally, it's your character that you own and you created. What was the most challenging part of all that? Because I mean, making films are challenging anyway, and obviously, you know, low budget indie filmmaking. I mean, you just talked about some of the pre-production challenges, is the financing, obviously, but of the actual, like when you were filming, what would you find most challenging?
It's the hours. Mm-hmm. It's really the hours because we never have enough people on the crew. It's so bare bones, and we're always wearing multiple hats. And your typical filmmaking day shouldn't go past like 12 hours. I mean, and there's days where we're literally doing like 20-hour days. And then we have to sleep, you know, I sleep for 4 hours and I got to be up to start. Yeah. Again, I'm typically the first person there too, because I have to start making up Art the Clown for 3 hours before we start shooting and everything like that. And then I got to help him once the day's over, take it off. That's another hour. So just mentally trying to stay focused, and you're dealing with so many problems, but just to keep that mindset and to keep your eye on the ball and just like make sure that you don't lose, you know, your creativity, and you just maintain that vision that you're trying to accomplish and not rush things. And it's really hard. It's really hard to pull off, but I'd say that's very stressful. It takes a toll on your mind and your body. But the special effects, I mean, as a whole, that movie was actually like a breeze. And a dream, like actually shooting it, like just everybody got along. Like the environment was very light. Like we all had a really good time. It was just the elements sucked. Like that environment of the warehouse. It was cold. It was the winter. There's no heat. There was no bathroom, so we had to have a porta potty. Just like all shit like that. It's just like a horrible environment. But the people were amazing. So it was smooth in that regard, which is probably the most important thing at the end of the day. Yeah, but as always, I mean, the effects are always brutal. I'd say on that whole shoot, it was like the 2 months leading up of just building the effects with Phil was very fun, but it was very grueling. And building Catherine's fake body, that was a big ordeal. Like we knew that was going to be the set piece of the film. Like that was going to be the showstopper scene. I knew that when I wrote the script. I was like, if we pull this off, that's going to be the scene everybody talks about. So we made sure we took a lot of time on building those props and shooting the scene. Like we dedicated like 2 whole days just to shoot the hacksaw scene. So
yeah, I was gonna ask about that. So 2 months to build everything, and then yeah, that hacksaw scene, man. I remember the first time I watched it. My wife watched it with me, and I said, that's the one they're gonna be talking about right there. That's the one they're gonna be talking about for a while. And yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw it, I knew, like you said, that's the showstopper. That's the one. So 2 days to film it, did you say?
I think 2 days to film it. 1 day with Catherine, and then the next day I think was all the special effects inserts. I mean, that was just for like the Catherine stuff. I think a whole nother day. Oh yeah. This is interesting. So all the stuff, all the angles with Jenna was shot months prior in a completely different location. That was actually shot in the basement of the warehouse. And the stuff with Art and Catherine was filmed. That was filmed in Staten Island, where the warehouse was in Jersey. So yeah, they're not even playing off of each other, which is interesting. So yeah, I mean, altogether, that was like three days worth of stuff to film that scene. But I got to always give all the credit to Catherine for that scene, because that's not a scene just, you know, anybody would do. It takes a special person to come in and do that. I remember having a meeting with her. I don't know if I'd given her the part yet or whatnot, but I mean, like, I met her before we started shooting, and we just had a cup of coffee, and I remember her telling me, she's like, you know, this scene, again, is going to be the scene that people talk about. She's like, this is like everything. And if we're going to do this, we got to do this right. We got to go all the way. And this has to be the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I agree. I agree. Yeah. I mean, let's do it. And it wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy. I mean, there's virtually no trickery. I mean, she's really hanging by her ankles in that shot, like down like that.
Crazy.
Yeah. We didn't test any of that out, really. I mean, my DP, who weighs like, you know, twice her body weight, I mean, he put himself up in there and hung from it just to make sure the thing wouldn't collapse. So once we knew it would hold his weight, we knew she'd be okay. But actually filming it and actually having her upside down, very, very intense. And, you know, you have blood pumps pouring blood down her, and it's going up her nose, and she's choking, and she could only stay upside down for 45 seconds, you know, so we had to be like a well-oiled machine, and we had to know when to come in, get her up, and who was going to bring her up and bring a ladder in and whatnot. So it was very intense. That was the most intense day on set. There was really nothing fun about shooting that scene. It was like very nerve-wracking, but she did such a great job. I mean, now people are getting, you know, she's got like tattoos. People get her, you know, getting sawed in half tattooed on their body. So I guess we did something right.
Yeah. I was gonna say it seems like all the work definitely paid off on that scene, because, like you said, it did turn out to be the showstopper. I think there are, you know, all the kills are, as you said, brutal and in your face, but I feel like you're really good at kind of subverting our horror expectations sometimes. You know, because I mean, in many ways there is, you know, some traditional slasher elements to Terrifier, but you know, and also with All Hallows Eve, those short, like I love when Art busts out the gun, you know, first of all, you know, doing something that your typical slasher doesn't do, and it's just kind of like a bang back to like the gritty realism of this thing, as you know, as crazy as it all is. And then just other things like you're you know, as horror fans, we're trained to presume, okay, this girl's probably going to be our final girl.
Right.
No, not in this one. Not the way this plans out. Yeah. And I love that, and I think that's, in my opinion, part of what has, you know, what fans like about it too, is that it does catch you off guard the first time you see it, quite a number of times, even for the most seasoned horror fan. So can you talk just a little bit about that, about how you were able to kind of subvert some of our expectations that we've come to expect in watching horror movies?
I thank you, man. I agree. I mean, I'm very conscious of that. And I think that is one of the keys, because like, yeah, he's a cool looking character and whatnot. He like delivers the goods as a killer, but you can't just have him just killing people. Like, you have to, like, what's going to keep shocking the audience? What's going to keep you guys interested? And I love taking, because all of this is like my love letter to fans. I mean, to myself as just a fan of the genre.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, what can I do to now spice it up and put like a modern twist or put a different twist, put like my spin on it, and where I can give you something that's so familiar that we all know, we all love, like playing and just visiting this world. But now let's make it different. Let's give you something new, because you don't want to do the exact same thing over and over again. So I love, like you brought up the gun. I said, gun, I'm more afraid of guns than anything else. I'm like, why can't a gun be just as frightening as a knife? You know what I mean? I was like, so that was like a personal challenge I had with myself. And I was like, I want to give him a gun, and I want him to use it like a slasher would. So he doesn't just shoot the girl once. Like, he really makes her suffer with the gun. And then he just mutilates her face after she's dead with the, you know, the rest of the clip. So it's just typical Art the Clown. If you're going to use the gun, you know, you got to use it like he's going to use it. And I'm always trying to do that. And I'm always, you know, I do that hopefully many times in the sequel, where you think one thing's going to happen and then it goes a completely different way and whatnot, the whole way. So yeah, it's one of my things.
Awesome. Well, I love that about Terrifier. And as you just mentioned, you know, Art, he's not just going to kill you easily. He's going to make you suffer if you're one of his victims. And I remember you talking about in 2019, I think it was at the Q&A at Mad Monster Party, you mentioned how in the scene when he's wearing the you know, the female skin, certainly one of the images from that movie that everybody, another one like the hacksaw scene, you know, I think that image really just because it's just so creepy and weird, and again, unexpected. Like, I don't think at that point in the movie that's what you're necessarily expecting to see Art do, but that's can you talk a little bit about that? I remember you talking about how that was, again, Art not just gonna kill her, he's gonna, you know, go the extra steps and do the most horrible thing imaginable.
Sure. Yeah. So that idea started with my girlfriend at the time. When she read the script, she said, I don't even know if that scene was in it or whatnot, but she said something like, I would love to see a scene with Art the Clown wearing a wig. That's all she said. And then I was just thinking of the imagery of Art wearing a wig. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's definitely creepy. But then I was like, why would he just wear a wig? I'm like, it's Art. He'd be wearing a scalp. All right. So we took a woman's scalp. I'm like, but would he only take her scalp? I mean, he'd probably take everything that's, you know, everything that makes her a female, he would take and he'd wear. You know, that's where my mind was going. You know, you got to think, you got to put yourself in the shoes of Art the Clown. And then, so when I wrote that in the script, I had him wearing the pieces, like her breast and everything, over his costume, because, you know, how the hell are you going to take your slasher out of their costume? I mean, that's like taking, you know, that's like taking Freddy out of his, you know, even though Freddy's a bad example because he can morph into a bunch of things, but you're never going to take Jason or Michael Myers out of their clothes and whatnot. So I remember when we were getting close to shooting, I called up Dave and I was like, you know, Dave, we're about to shoot this scene. I'm like, I think it's going to be goofy with I don't think it's going to have the same impact with the skin over your costume. I said, I think it's going to be very creepy if you're naked and you have this on, and it's like you're bloody, the body parts are bloody. So it's like you actually like now look like a woman, like you transform. And, you know, it's just going to be way more disturbing that way. And he was like, to Dave's credit, he was like, yeah, he's like, you know, if Catherine could get naked and get hung upside down like that, he's like, I'll do it. I'll take one for the team, which is a huge, I mean, this is a guy who's never, at this point, like never been in a movie before. I mean, it's a big deal. Just like, you know, all of a sudden, like, yeah, I'm going to get naked. And, you know, very awkward day of filming, but, you know, we did it. And again, it's definitely a more memorable image than if he had his costume on. But that's another one of those risks that I like taking with the character. Is let's do things that other slashers don't do. Let's completely take him out of his element. Let's take him out of his costume. I mean, we know at this point, I knew Art the Clown worked in that costume because I'd be making so many short films and getting all these compliments about him. And it's like, now you're going to take him out of like potentially the only thing that works is like take him out of his costume and whatnot. So I like doing things like that. I like taking risks because, you know, sometimes it's going to fail, but sometimes it'll pay off. But you're going to get something different.
Yeah. And you mentioned David Howard Thornton. Of course, he wasn't the original art in All Hallows Eve. That was Mike Gianelli.
That's correct.
But David is art in Terrifier and Terrifier 2. Can you tell me just a little bit about how you connected with him and why he is your perfect Art the Clown?
Yeah, I mean, Dave's a sweetheart. When we did held the audition, sorry, I was really, so that was the scariest thing, was when my friend Mike Gianelli is my close friend, but he's not an actor, and he just didn't want to do it anymore. He just couldn't dedicate all of his time to just sitting in the chair and just months and months and months. I mean, if it's not your thing, you really have to be dedicated to it. So it just wasn't his thing. So I'm like, great. We just lost the only thing that worked, right, was art. And it's like, now I got to start from scratch and find an actor. I mean, this could be a disaster. So the only thing that I knew now going into this was the one thing I wish Mike was, which he wasn't, was taller and skinnier. That's how I always really envisioned Art the Clown. So right off the bat, I was just looking for an actor to come in with that physicality. And I think Dave was probably the 5th person to come into the audition. And as soon as he walked in, I was like, okay, this guy, big smile, lanky. And I'm like, all right, well, this guy looks like what I want Art the Clown to look like. I was like, let's see the audition. And I said, he's like, oh, well, what do I do? I don't think he had sides or anything. And I said, just act out a scene where you're decapitating somebody. Do it very gleefully, like you're having a great time doing it. I was like, that's it. Just go for it. And he, you could see the audition. I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, he's just having a blast, like big Joker smile and just prancing around the room and tasting the blood, pouring salt on it. I mean, just going all out. And just like me and my producer Phil's with me, and we're both like laughing, having a good time, like nudging each other, like this is cool. And then that was it. Maybe like 3 other people came in after him. And I was like, I mean, this guy, I mean, what else are we possibly looking for? I was like, let's have him come in and do a makeup test. And then we had him come in like a week later to do that, put the prosthetic on him to see how that worked. And he's like, we spent like a whole day with him. He's like, so do I have the part? I'm like, oh yeah, you got it. I was like, so that was it. I mean, it was like that one audition. But yeah, I mean, it was really the physicality was what I was looking for. I mean, he virtually had it just based on the way he looked. But then when he did the audition, I was like, well, this is great. Because again, Mike wasn't an actor, but now because Dave is such a great actor and very theatrical, he puts so much of his flair into the character. And we've made him a lot clownier as we go, because I've seen him bring that element to it. And like originally he's not like that at all. If you watch All Hallows Eve. So that's one of the main things that Dave brings to the part, is that theatricality. And we've stuck with that. It works. People like it. So yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. You use the word gleefully, and I remember I used that word in my review of Terrifier back in 2018. But yeah, I think that's part of what's most disturbing about art is, it's this very visceral, brutal violence, and yet he's so gleefully doing it. And so just, gleeful gore. But it totally works, and is, it definitely makes a stamp on your brain that you're still thinking about after the movie's over.
Yeah. He's having fun. I like that I think people, they enjoy having a good time with him, and they kind of they don't know how to feel about it. It's like, well, why am I having fun watching him like people? Because you appreciate the fun that he has. It's not something like the other slashers. He just wants to get over it. That was another big thing I wanted to do, which would separate Terrifier from the traditional slashers, which was your kill scenes in your old slashers are like instantaneous. Like they they come and go. The knife goes up, it comes down, scene's over. You have like all this build up, and everybody wants to see the kill, and the kill is just bang, it's over. And I was like, no, we're gonna make the kills. I mean, the movie's gonna stop, and you're just gonna you're gonna be stuck with this for a while. So that's become another staple of the franchise at this point with the kill scenes.
Oh yeah, staying right there with it and not flinching at all. And I think again, that's part of what fans have responded to, obviously. And there's still lots more to come in part 2 of our interview, including more about the making of Terrifier, the challenges of independent filmmaking in general, what we can expect with Terrifier 2, and beyond. That's all coming up in part 2 of my interview next week, right here on the Halloween Daily News YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it. Until then, I'm Matt Arts for Halloween Daily News. Thank you for watching.